Hi guys, Deanne here from Canada Abroad, and thanks so much for tuning in today. And if you want to stay up to date with all the latest Canadian immigration news or get tips about Canadian immigration, then just don't forget to subscribe to the channel. And we post videos weekly to keep you guys updated on what is going on with Canadian immigration. Today, I'm going to be talking about World Education Services and why you might choose to use a different provider for your educational credential assessments. Now, if you're already in the express entry system, you may still want to watch this video because you might be one of those individuals that might be better off getting a second educational credential assessment done to actually increase your current comprehensive ranking system score. Now, before we jump into everything, I'm just going to make it clear World Education Services is approved to do educational credential assessments for Canadian immigration. And you can definitely use them. What I'm going to be talking about today is certain instances where you might want to use a different agency or where you need to maybe provide more documents than they're asking you for. So what I'm going to start with is what I've seen from World Education Services that made me decide to use other service providers for my clients. So some of our clients are from South Africa, and we get quite a few people who have a Bachelor of Law degree. And it's not just South Africa, it can be other countries as well. So in Canada, typically, you will do a bachelor's degree first, and then you go to law school after that. So when they're doing the evaluations, what we see sometimes is if you're from a country where you just went from high school straight into your Bachelor of Law, then you might not be getting the full credit for your degree. So what we've seen is with these Bachelors of Law, if we send them to World Education Services, the Canadian equivalency that they get is just a bachelor's degree. So what's really important here is when the officers are trained by Immigration, Refugees, and Citizenship Canada, their own training manual states they are just to look at the Canadian equivalency on basically the first page of the report. So if you get your report from WES, the first page is usually an intro page, and then page 2 starts the actual evaluation of your qualifications. So on that page 2, which is really the first page of the report, it'll have Canadian equivalency at the top. Whatever is written there, that is what the officer is looking at when they are assessing how many points you should be getting for education under the comprehensive ranking system. So what you might see there, it'll say bachelor's degree 3 or 4 years. Then in your actual summary, it'll say, the program of study was law, recognized bachelor's degree. So if your Canadian equivalency just says bachelor's degree, then you're only getting points for a bachelor's degree. You're not going to be getting those points for a professional degree. And that's a huge difference. Depending on how you did on your language test results, it could be a 32-point difference or more for some people. And that is massive on the comprehensive ranking system score. So what we found is with these law degrees, if we send them to IQAS, they're getting recognized as first professional degree in law. And that is enough to give you those points for an actual law degree where you'll get the extra 32 points. So I've taken one client's report, and we did it through World Education Services and IQAS, and you can see the difference here. So as you can see with the IQAS report, they got the proper recognition for their law degree. So that's obviously the one that we've used for their application because they have received extra points under the comprehensive ranking system. Now, we've seen this with other countries like India. It was more favorable to use IQAS as opposed to World Education Services. So if you have a law degree, and unlike Canada and the US where you had to do a bachelor's degree first and then your law degree, you might be better off using a different agency than World Education Services, because you might not get the full credit for that professional degree in law, which means you're going to lose quite a few points on the comprehensive ranking system. Now, the next instance is where you have two qualifications. So if you've looked at the comprehensive ranking system, you get points for a 1-year qualification, a 2-year, a 3-year, having two separate qualifications, where one is a 3-year or longer, and then you have a second one in addition to that, then the master's degrees, and then the PhDs. So if you have a master's degree, a PhD, just a bachelor's, then it's pretty straightforward. If you use World Education Services, that's fine. What we've seen though is sometimes people get confused because on certain parts of the process with World Education Services, they say, just enter the details for your highest qualification. And yeah, if you have a master's degree or you've got a PhD or you just have a bachelor's, then yes, very straightforward, perfect. But let's say you have a national diploma and then you have a Bachelor of Technology. These are two separate qualifications. And if you just send your Bachelor of Technology, you're only going to get credit for the one. You're not going to get any credit for having two separate qualifications, which again, we know is going to give you at least 32 extra points, depending on your language test results, through the comprehensive ranking system. So you really want to look at the education you have and make sure you're submitting everything you need to get those points through the comprehensive ranking system. So let's say you did a bachelor's degree and a postgraduate certificate or a postgraduate diploma. You don't want to just send your postgraduate diploma or your postgraduate certificate. You have to submit the bachelor's and the postgraduate certificate or diploma if you want credit for both. Or if you did, a 1-year diploma and then later you went and did a bachelor's degree, submit both, because it doesn't matter the order you completed them in. It's just that you have two. But again, remember, if you're claiming points for two separate qualifications, one has to have been for 3 years or longer. And then the other one can be any duration. But it's just important to note, if you have a 2-year diploma and a 1-year diploma, well then yes, you're only going to get credit for that 2-year diploma. Now, with this, again, depending on where you received your education, we do see this a lot from India. Depending on the school you went to, if you use World Education Services for your master's degree, sometimes it's seen as a bachelor's or maybe just a postgraduate diploma. So again, if you have a master's degree, you might want to send both your bachelor's and your master's, because then if they recognize the bachelor's, but for your master's, they only recognize it as a postgraduate diploma, at least again, you're getting credit for the two qualifications. Because if you send your master's degree off and they only recognize it as a postgraduate diploma, then that's all you can claim as a diploma of 1 year or 2 year, and that is way less points than even a bachelor's degree. Also, in some cases, if you use a different service provider, your master's might actually be recognized as a proper master's degree. And that again is a huge difference on the comprehensive ranking system. So if you're in express entry and you're thinking, okay, well, yeah, no, my degree was a master's, but it was only recognized as a bachelor's, or my law degree wasn't given proper recognition. If you now go and use a different service provider and get a new educational credential assessment and it comes back at a higher level, then you can just go in and update your express entry profile. You can do that. So you can go in and change the educational credential assessment report details, and then your comprehensive ranking system score will be updated. So it's not set in stone. You can definitely go and change it. Or some people send off two educational credential assessments. They use World Education Service and another service provider, because World Education Services tends to be quicker. So they get that report back, they use it to get into the express entry system. And then if they find when the second report comes back that it was a higher level, they'll just go in and update their express entry profile. So you can do that as well. Now, another thing that we've seen lately with World Education Services is when they give you that Canadian equivalency, It is not anything that's listed on the immigration website. So they do have a tool that you can take your ECA report and look up what it is the equivalent of for points on the comprehensive ranking system. But lately we've seen some odd wording, and it is in no way anything that is listed on the Canadian immigration website. So then the clients are left wondering how they're supposed to put this in to their express entry profile. So here's one example of what I'm talking about. So with this report, we know that the qualification is at least recognized. So it's a recognized school, it's a recognized program. But how many years is it? Is it a 2-year? Is it a 3-year? So in this case, all we can do is look at the actual transcripts of the program, see how many years they studied full-time for, and use that when claiming points. But then later on, if they get an invitation to apply, the officer can make a different decision. I mean, hopefully they would look at the transcripts and say, yes, we can see that this was a 2 or a 3-year program, and we know the diploma is recognized. But because World Education Services didn't actually specify it, you don't know until the officer reviews it if they're going to agree with you or not, which is extremely frustrating. You're paying money to this agency that's been designated by immigration, and the wording, it's not anything that immigration recognizes or uses. And it's not like this individual with this report that we applied for it for purposes other than immigration. This was requested for immigration specifically. So if you've gotten a report like this, I mean, you're not the only one. So all you can do is look at your transcripts and use that to decide how many years you're going to claim it for. So again, when deciding to do your educational credential assessment, you can absolutely use World Education Services. If you've got, one qualification, it's straightforward. They are usually the quickest. So in some cases, we will still use them for clients where we know that we're going to get what we expect back from them. But if you have professional qualifications, if you have more than one qualification, depending what country you're from, you might find it more beneficial to use a different agency. Or like I said, you can try World Education Services. If it doesn't come back at the level that you were expecting, or they didn't recognize your degree, then you can try a different agency. So if you're trying to go as quickly as possible, we get it. People will still use World Education Services. But be aware that there are other options out there, because if World Education Services doesn't recognize your qualification, doesn't give you full credit, that doesn't mean you can't use another organization and get an updated report and update your express entry profile. You can absolutely do that. And we have done it for our clients. We've consulted with people and advised them to do this, and we've seen their scores go up. So with the draws resuming in July, you're going to want to go take a look at your report now and see if you might benefit from trying to get a different educational credential assessment to boost your score before those draws start. So thank you guys so much, as always, for tuning in. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you want to stay up to date with all the latest Canadian immigration news and updates.